Tonight in the NCAA women's basketball tournament, both are at home for second-round games. UCLA takes on Creighton, 5:30 tip-off on ESPN2. The winner advances to the Sweet 16 to face defending national champion LSU in the Albany Regional. USC and Juju Watkins play Kansas tonight. Another sellout crowd is expected at the Galen Center, 7 p.m. tip-off on ESPN. The winner advances to the Sweet 16 in the Portland Regional. Arizona is the only Pac-12 conference team left in the NCAA men's tournament. Arizona has a Sweet 16 matchup Thursday night against Clemson at Crypto.com. Crypto is the site of the West Regional Finals. The Clippers are expecting to have Russell Westbrook back for tonight's home game against Indiana. Westbrook missed the last 12 games with a broken left hand. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
All I need is one mic.
Reparations Now has been a rallying cry in this country and around the world for decades. But the demand has taken on new urgency with growing momentum on the issue led by the state of California, which has completed an extensive study and put forth recommendations to enact reparations. California's reparations actions have huge nationwide implications. The California Task Force was the first of its kind in the nation, and the states of New York and Colorado recently voted to take on the issue. Dozens of cities from coast to coast, including San Francisco, Boston, Los Angeles, and Detroit, have started their own reparations commissions. One of the first known reparationists was Callie House, who toured the nation advocating for reparations in the 1890s. But never in this nation's history has the movement to heal the harms of enslavement, institutionalized racism, and the system of white supremacy seemed so strong. The topic remains untouchable for most elected officials, and the call for reparations has not yet garnered widespread public support. Polling shows that most Californians agree that black fellow citizens are still suffering from the damage done by slavery and Jim Crow, but they still do not support cash reparations. The California Legislative Black Caucus has introduced a package of proposals for bills that do not include 1 penny of cash compensation, restitution, or repair. Governor Newsom and other lawmakers have distanced themselves from the concept of cash payments. While Newsom is right, cash alone will not repair our collective harm, the state's goofy legislative package ignoring monetary payments is disingenuous. California lawmakers need to step up and put a reparations bill for cash payments on the table. The issue of how it is funded, the timeline, or whether it impacts our current budget challenges can be addressed. But we must strike while the iron is hot, or the window of opportunity will pass us by. If you agree that it's time for our lawmakers to add a bill enacting cash payments to their lineup, call them at 916-319-3868 and say, if it doesn't include cash, it ain't reparations. That's 916-319-3868. Tell him Callie House sent you. From Bruce's Beach to the California Task Force, the Golden State is a trailblazer when it comes to reparations. The world is watching. We must rise to the historical moment and set a precedent for cash payments along with legislative remedies and policies addressing the systemic badges of slavery and Jim Crow. We must insist on measures significant enough to help close the racial wealth gap. California must stand for cash, and the time for reparations is now. For KBLA Talk 1580, I'm Dominique DePrima. We welcome your comments.
I'm Tavis, Smiley, and I am honored to have you with us today in this third and final hour. 2 amazing hours in front of us and 1 more to go. And this is going to be a good one. It's been a long time since I talked to my friend Robert Greenwald, award-winning filmmaker, but he has done it again. He has a new project, a new documentary called Beyond Bars, about former San Francisco DA Chesa Boudin. You might recall that Chesa Boudin was part of that wave of progressive DAs elected all across America just a few years ago. I was just mentioning the DA, Alvin Bragg, in New York City, in case you've just tuned in and didn't hear. The case that Alvin Bragg has brought against Donald Trump will go forward on April 15. Trump's lawyers have been asking for a delay in that case. A judge just ruled a little while ago that case will commence on April 15. Trump's lawyers were arguing for a delay, arguing mismanagement and misconduct, et cetera, on the part of this black DA, Alvin Bragg. The judge was hearing none of that, and that case will begin on April 15th. Again, in case you've also just tuned in, Letitia James, the sister who is AG in the state of New York, had a setback in her case today. Donald Trump was granted by a federal appellate court the opportunity to reduce his $454 million bond in that fraud case down to $175 million. As Ben Crump, the famed attorney, said to me in this program an hour or so ago, never has any of his black clients received a 68% reduction in their bond fee. Only a white male, only Donald Trump could get a 68% reduction. So there is breaking news about Trump on a couple of different cases, but these cases across the country are involving more and more African American and progressive DAs, be they Fonnie Willis in Fulton County, Alvin Bragg in Manhattan, Letitia James, AG in New York City. These DAs across the country a few years ago started being elected everywhere, and they were progressive in their political ideology. So Chesa Boudin in San Francisco was one of those progressive DAs elected. Indeed, many of those progressives once elected were deemed too progressive, and some of them faced recalls, including George Gascon here in L.A. He survived his recall here, but Chesa Boudin was in fact removed from office in the city by the Bay. In this hour, we will talk about the fascinating and intriguing life of Chesa Boudin. By the way, Chesa Boudin is a guest on this program tomorrow. You'll hear from Chesa in his own words tomorrow about what happened and why he think he lost, why he got recalled in San Francisco. But this documentary, Beyond Bars, is about the life of Chesa Boudin even before he was elected DA. The filmmaker behind this project his name is Robert Greenwald. Here now some sound from the documentary.
We have two systems of justice, right? We have one for the wealthy and the well-connected and a different one for everybody else. And that's exactly what we are fighting to change. We are just getting started because we knew that fixing a system that has failed us, not just for decades, but for generations, was not the work of 1 year or one term, of one man or woman or one office. It is work that requires a sustained social movement. The movement is alive and well from coast to coast, from north to south. This is a movement, not a moment in history.
They voted him in as a progressive DA in San Francisco, and then they yanked him out. And that's just a part of the story. But the full story of Chesa Boudin is an amazing tale, and it's told by Robert Greenwald in this new documentary called Beyond Bars. We will commence our conversation with Robert Greenwald when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
You're listening to Tavis Smiley. Tavis Smiley. Ranked number 45 on the Heavy 100 list of the 100 most important radio talk show hosts in America.
Hey y'all, Mona Swain here from Target's new YouTube series, My Cart is Full, where we feature Black founders and creators highlighting their connection to our community. As an actor and content creator, I love using my voice to inspire young Black women who look like me. When it comes to feeding my shine, seeing myself reflected in Black-owned and founded products at Target brings me joy. Together, we are Black Beyond Measure. Learn more at target.com/Black Beyond Measure.
Cookie wants to be a professional wrestler.
I'm Cookie Serratos and I'm 11 years old.
She also wants to win all the medals. That's why Cookie and her family make every day count, squeezing out her best with Go-Go Squeeze.
Okay, Cookie, let's break for a Go-Go Squeeze.
Go-Go Squeeze Fruit on the Go pouches are a nutritious snack made from 100% fruit with no sugar added.
Go, Cookie!
Because when you nurture your kids, you squeeze out the best in them. Squeeze out the best with Go-Go Squeeze. Not a low-calorie food. Products range from 11 to 13 grams of sugar and 60 to 70 calories per serving.
Imagine with me here for a minute the most beautiful panoramic setting. Maybe it's an endless ocean, waves crashing on a beach, or a crystal clear mountain lake, peaceful and quiet. Or maybe it's just little kids playing in the park down the street. Wherever your imagination takes you, now imagine right smack in the middle of this perfect picture, a piece of litter. Just one piece right there in the middle of it all. Doesn't exactly fit, does it? In fact, even though it's just one piece, now it's all you can see. That one piece ruins everything. And that's the thing about litter. It doesn't take much to ruin everything. One thing's for sure, it simply does not belong anywhere in California. So here's the good news. If we work together, we will change it. We don't have to let litter, even just one piece, ruin your perfect picture. Not anymore. Not ever again. Clean California. Zero litter is the goal. Brought to you by Caltrans and CleanCA.com.
Oh, this cold.
Honey?
Honey?
Honey, you need DayQuil Severe Honey.
DayQuil Severe Honey gives you powerful cold and flu symptom relief with a honeylicious taste, because life doesn't stop for a cold.
Okay, I'm ready to go.
Now I'm getting a cold.
Honey.
Try DayQuil Severe Honey for powerful cold and flu relief. DayQuil Severe with honey flavor. The daytime coughing, aching, stuffy head, fever, honeylicious, power through your day medicine. Use as directed. Keep out of reach of children.
Pizza's here.
Oh, great. I'd love some, but I'm worried about my stomach issues.
If you're worried about having diarrhea, gas, bloating, stomach pain, or loose, oily stools, it may not just be stomach issues. It could be a condition called exocrine pancreatic insufficiency, or EPI. With EPI, the pancreas doesn't release enough enzymes to break down food, but EPI is manageable. Use the symptom checker on identifyepi.com and talk to your doctor. That's identifyepi.com. Sponsored by AbbVie.
More honesty than you can handle. More empowerment than you can imagine. You're tuned in to Tavis Smiley.
Tavis Smiley and filmmaker Robert Greenwald, who is the force behind this new documentary called Beyond Bars about Chesa Boudin. I'm going to play a couple more clips for you that'll give you a better sense of who Chesa Boudin is in a moment. But first, let me welcome Robert Greenwald to this program. Robert, how are you, sir?
I'm very well. So nice to be with you again. And how are you?
I'm doing the best I can. If I complained, I'd be an ingrate. So I'm doing well, and delighted to be in dialogue with you once again. Before I play a couple more clips from your documentary that'll give folks a sense of Chesa's backstory, which is as fascinating as anything he's ever done in his career. Tell me how you came to this project. I'm always fascinated how filmmakers and subjects get connected. Why this Chesa Boudin project for you called Beyond Bars, Robert?
The film, or the idea for the film, actually came to me from a couple of ways. Number one is I read someplace, I think it was maybe The Nation, about the fact that Chesa had been raised by 4 parents.
Uh-huh.
2 of them were locked up, and 2 of them were on the outside. They all were former members of the Weather Underground. Now, I've got 4 kids, 2 grandkids. Raising one child with your significant other is a hell of a challenge. So just on a human, universal level, how did they manage to collaborate, cooperate, and work together, raising this extraordinary young man? So that was the sort of personal side of it. On the purely political side of it, it was very clear to me and many others that the smart, progressive district attorneys were making an enormous difference in people's lives. And you didn't have to convince some hack politician to change a law. You could get these DAs elected, and they immediately began impacting people's lives. They immediately began attacking and dealing with systemic racism. They immediately began changing things up so that people who were locked up for endless periods of time, who never should have been locked up, who never would have been locked up if they were white, the district attorneys all across the country and Chesa went to work on changing things. This was a danger that the system would not tolerate, and we've seen the attacks because of it. So it was those 2 elements coming together that I felt made a strong potential film.
As I said, they elected Chesa as a progressive DA in San Francisco, and then they yanked him out of office. We'll talk about that part of the story as we move forward. But you heard Robert say a moment ago that Chesa has a fascinating backstory. He's raised in part by 2 parents who are both in prison. He spends time in his entire, all throughout his childhood, he spends time with his parents behind bars. The name of the documentary is called Beyond Bars. But he spent time with his parents, visiting them when they were behind bars. Take a listen to this clip from the documentary, and I'll let Robert explain it when we come forward.
I took my son to the babysitter and assumed that I would be back to pick him up later in the day. It's hard to imagine that, and yet I think the way in which denial can work is that you literally can block out consequences. I think that I was completely out of touch.
One thing that revolutionary groups need to function is funds. They usually don't get grants from the Rockefeller Foundation, the Ford Foundation. So we knew there was danger, but we didn't dwell on that. White people are much less likely to get stopped and questioned by the cops. They would be looking for black people specifically. We felt that once they got into the truck and it was a white couple driving, it was very unlikely to be a problem.
I'd left my 14-month-old child at the babysitter. I had ruptured a most basic human bond, violating a mother's responsibility to protect and care for her baby.
We dropped them off together, and it was sort of like another day. You drop your kid off at the babysitter, and you go to your job, and you pick the kid up.
If I could only replay that day, I would not have been there. I would not have gone.
In many respects, Robert, that clip is self-explanatory, but I'm going to ask you to expound upon it. It's your documentary. It's called Beyond Bars. It is about the life of Chesa Boudin. Tell me what we were hearing in that clip, sir.
We were hearing from two of Chesa's four parents, David Gilbert, who'd been locked up for 40-some-odd years and just 2 years ago was released, and his birth mother, Chesa Boudin, who died 2 years ago, May Day, after she'd been released and out for 10 or 15 years. And it encapsulates the story of parents behind bars and parents with the desire and effort and support system to stay in touch with their young son. He would come visiting. They had financial resources, so he could call them. They had tutors and therapists and all kinds of help that most people who are locked up do not have, and goes right back to the economic and systemic racism in the system itself. And because Chesa had that unique perspective from age 3 and 4, visiting them and seeing the long lines to get into visit parents and relatives who were locked up, because he had that unique perspective, he internalized, incorporated, and made it a part of his lifelong efforts to change the whole system itself.
Yeah, we'll talk about that part, which is that's the good part. We'll talk about that part as we move forward. And again, Chesa Boudin will be our guest on this program tomorrow for the hour and tell his story in his own words. But we wanted to get Robert Greenwald on today to just give you a teaser, as it were, about this documentary called Beyond Bars. Tell me a bit more about his parents. We heard in that clip, obviously, and you described how his parents were behind bars. Both of them eventually got out. One more recently, his father, just a couple of years ago. But tell us a bit more about why they found themselves in harm's way, in trouble in the first place, Robert Greenwald.
Well, I will do that. I just want to make sure that I mention right away, the film is available and it's free. We are a small nonprofit, and so it's available right now. If you go to Brave New Films, or you go to our website, or YouTube, or Facebook, or any social media, you can find ways to sign up and have a screening of it, no charge, with a study guide, or if it's in a place of worship, a faith reflection guide. And the reason for that is we want to reach as many people as possible of this very unique story of how David Gilbert and Chesa Boudin, who had been in the Weather Underground for many years, enlisted, joined up, were recruited by some folks who were planning an action to create financial support for the underground efforts. That robbery, which was meant to be a robbery, and Kathy and David were supposed to be the white decoys, as they say, went off the rails. And tragically and horribly, 3 people, guards, were killed as part of the robbery. And then soon thereafter, David and Kathy were captured and locked up for many, many years. Not to excuse them, because they don't excuse themselves, but it is important to understand they were not at the scene of the crime. They did not have guns. They were, in fact, accessories. And both of them spent years working first within prison and then outside peacefully and consistently to change the abuses and outrages of the system. Each of them counseled people who were locked up with them. They provide education, AIDS counseling, violence counseling, all kinds of extraordinary efforts that really reaffirm the notion that I'm sure many of your listeners align with, that one deed does not define somebody forever.
Yeah, oh, no question about it. We are not our experiences. We are not defined by one experience. I've said many, many times, I gave a speech about this years ago, and I come back to it in moments like these. And this audience has heard me say it before, that some of us is not the sum of us. Some of us is not the sum of us. The S-O-M-E of us is not the S-U-M of us. None of us wants to be defined by the S-O-M-E. We all want to be defined and seen for the S-U-M, the sum total of all that we've done in life, not one or two mistakes we might have made. We are not, as my friend Brian Stevenson says, we are not our worst deeds. We are not our worst acts. And in that regard, Robert Greenwald and I are simpatico. A quick word about Robert Greenwald, and then back to the story. He mentioned this a moment ago, and you kind of pushed ahead of me, which is fine. But I really want you to appreciate who Robert Greenwald is. And I've known him for years, and we've done this a number of times over the years. He is the president of Brave New Films. As he mentioned earlier, it's a nonprofit film company that he founded after a career in commercial television and film to motivate and educate viewers on the most pressing issues of the day. And the reason why I celebrate him is because it is, again, a nonprofit company, and they are all about the business of bringing subjects and titles and issues to the forefront for you to wrestle with that you otherwise wouldn't read, hear, or know about. They distribute their work through free social media in concert with nonprofit partners and movements, and their videos, their films, their movies have been screened around the world and viewed millions and millions and millions of times. And so he has dedicated his life, his work and witness is all about bringing us projects that make us think, projects that make us re-examine the assumptions that we hold, projects that make us expand our inventory of ideas and imagine a different kind of world, a new world, a better world. And so, again, his company's called Brave New Films, and you can just find his stuff everywhere by Googling Brave New Films. This one that we're talking about in this hour is called Beyond Bars. It's about the life of Chesa Boudin, who was elected DA in San Francisco and eventually yanked out of that position. Let me jump ahead, then I'll come back, Robert. And again, Chesa's on this program tomorrow, so we'll hear his response to this. But as the filmmaker, what do you make of the fact that here's a kid who literally spends all of his formative years going in and out of prison to spend time with his parents, his very loving parents. He's in and out of prisons all these years visiting his parents, and this guy dedicates his life to trying to change a system that he saw his parents victimized by, and ends up being so successful he's actually elected the DA in San Francisco. It is quite a remarkable story. What do you make of that part of it?
Well, you chose the exact right words. It is a remarkable story. He's a remarkable person. But the bigger lesson, if you will, the bigger takeaway, if you will, is trauma doesn't guarantee a life of despair. Trauma doesn't mean we can never do anything again. It's not easy, and Chesa had many advantages that most people locked up, frankly, don't have. He was white, came from a middle-class family. There are economic resources. That's not available to most people who get locked up and they throw away the key.
That's right.
But it was available to him, and through the efforts of all of those elements and his own inherent and formative drive for change and for wanting to be with his loving and caring parents, flying all over the country at different times with friends and relatives and strangers on airplanes. And rather than it beating him down, which we know that's what the prison system is meant to do, it's not meant to rehabilitate. It's meant to beat the crap out of people, punish them, and shove them down, never to be able to stand up again. Well, he didn't let that happen to him, and he committed his life, fortunately, to making change, not just to get first his mother and then his father released, which in and of itself was amazing.
Sure.
But he's dedicated his life to the system change. And David Gilbert, in an interview we did with him soon after he was released, said it's not about one person. It is about changing the whole system. And for that, the story, the politics, and the inspiration from this family, I think, is a very powerful one, and especially now, Tavis, when district attorneys all over the country, particularly district attorneys of color, particularly women, are being hammered and attacked relentlessly with huge amounts of money being put behind attacks on them.
No, they're trying to navigate these attacks, and you and I both know why, because they are persons of color. And many of them, as I intimated earlier, are at the helm of major cases. Fonnie Willis in Fulton County in Atlanta, Georgia. As I mentioned earlier, Alvin Bragg in New York City will have his turn prosecuting Donald Trump on April 15. Letitia James has had her turn as Attorney General in the state of New York. So at the very moment, I want to just put a finer point on the brilliant analysis that Robert Greenwald just shared with us. At this point in American history, where women, this is March, Women's History Month. We just navigated February, Black History Month. At a moment in America's history where these prosecutors, these DAs, these attorney generals, these law enforcement agents happen to be women and people of color, all of a sudden they're under attack. When we come forward, I want to ask Robert Greenwald what he makes of the fact that we have been sort of, how might I put it, politically schizophrenic when it comes to electing progressive DAs. Why did we elect these folk in L.A., George Gascon, Chesa Boudin in San Francisco, Alvin Bragg in New York, on and on and on I could go with these progressive DAs elected, and then many of them have since faced recalls. Chesa was yanked out of office. But what's that about? You say you want a progressive DA. You say you want to change the system. You say we can do better. You say the system is racist. You say the system is unfair. Here comes the progressive DA trying to address all of that, and then you don't like it, and you yank him out of office. That's what happens to Chesa Boudin in San Francisco. We'll talk about that and a great deal more regarding this new documentary called Beyond Bars by the filmmaker Robert Greenwald, who's our guest right now, and I'm glad about it, on Tavis Smiley.
Seeking the truth. Speaking the truth. This is the Tavis Smiley Show.
Paid for by government.com. Did you know the United States Mint has issued a new Morgan silver dollar coin in proof condition for the first time? Not only that, they are also minted in 99.9% pure silver for the first time ever in history. Coin experts are calling this an amazing opportunity for anyone that knows the enduring popularity of Morgans. But you must hurry. Only 400,000 of these legal tender silver dollars were issued. These first ever Morgan silver dollars are brand new with stunning mirror-like finish, minted by the iconic San Francisco Mint. Call now and you're guaranteed a new first ever 99.9% pure silver proof Morgan dollar. To learn more, call 1-800-973-9717. If you order now, you will receive a free coin collector bonus pack, a $25 value, free with every order. Call 1-800-973-9717 now to secure your new Morgan silver dollars before they are gone. That's 1-800-973-9717.
I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. Voters in Georgia will show up for President Biden in November's presidential election. That's what Democratic Senator Raphael Warnock told CBS's Face the Nation this morning. The African-American senator said Georgia voters and black voters will see the election as a binary choice and back Biden over Donald Trump. He added that the more Trump talks, the better our fortunes will be. Boeing's CEO is stepping down. The company issued a statement this morning confirming that Dave Calhoun would be departing at the end of the year. The announcement comes along with word that several other senior leaders have also decided to part ways with Boeing in the wake of a slew of negative stories, starting with a door panel blowing out on a Boeing 737 MAX plane back in January. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network, and BINnews.com.
Why are people saying "Hew yeah" to Jackson Hewitt? When you switch to Jackson Hewitt, they will beat what you paid last year on tax prep, even if you filed online. Proof of prior year payment required when filing. New clients only at participating locations through April 7th. Terms at jacksonhewitt.com.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
USC and UCLA are back on the court tonight in the NCAA women's basketball tournament. Both are at home for second-round games. UCLA takes on Creighton, 5:30 tip-off on ESPN2. The winner advances to the Sweet 16 to face defending national champion LSU in the Albany Regional. USC and Juju Watkins play Kansas tonight. Another sellout crowd is expected at the Galen Center, 7 p.m. tip-off on ESPN. The winner advances to the Sweet 16 in the Portland Regional. Arizona is the only Pac-12 conference team left in the NCAA men's tournament. Arizona has a Sweet 16 matchup Thursday night against Clemson at Crypto.com. Crypto is the site of the West Regional Finals. The Clippers are expecting to have Russell Westbrook back for tonight's home game against Indiana. Westbrook missed the last 12 games with a broken left hand. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
Linking social justice and climate justice all year long. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. KBLA Talk 1580 is the fastest growing talk radio station in Southern California. Home to 50,000 watts and an audience reach of 12 million listeners. KBLA Talk 1580 is a pioneer for Black audio content, including our groundbreaking $2 million climate justice campaign and the most loyal, influential audience. According to an independent research study by the polling firm Aviterus, for the second consecutive year, KBLA Talk 1580 is the most trustworthy, reliable, and credible news source for Black audiences and beyond in Southern California. Let KBLA Talk 1580 power your advertising dollars. Our omni-channel custom marketing solutions are specifically tailored to connect with your ideal target audience. We leverage audio, podcasts, streaming, digital, social media, and local activations to get your message out to the Black community. Get in touch with our advertising team today at advertising@KBLA1580.com. That's advertising@KBLA1580.com. KBLA 1580. We've got your Black.
To thank you for 40 unforgettable years, Dell Technologies is celebrating with anniversary savings on their most popular tech. Save on select next-gen PCs like the XPS 13 Plus, powered by Intel Core processors and more. Save now at Dell.com/deals.
We've got a lot to talk about.
Hi, I'm Zoe Williams, a.k.a. the Voice of Reason, encouraging you to join me weekdays from 7 to 9 p.m. for the world's most intriguing relationship radio roundtable. Every night, I facilitate and encourage our loyal listeners to participate in the most engaging relationship discussions you'll hear anywhere. So make it a point to rendezvous with me, Zoe Williams, the Voice of Reason, Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Trust me, your relationships will never be the same. The VOR is on fire tonight.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your Black.
I have diabetes. I'm at risk for pneumococcal pneumonia.
I have asthma. I'm at risk too.
If you're 19 or older with chronic conditions like asthma, diabetes, COPD, or heart disease, or are 65 or older, you are at increased risk for pneumococcal pneumonia. Ask your doctor or pharmacist about Prevnar 20, pneumococcal 20-valent conjugate vaccine, a Pfizer vaccine that can help protect you against pneumococcal pneumonia in just one dose. Even if you've already been vaccinated with other pneumonia vaccines, Prevnar 20 may help provide added protection. Prevnar 20 is approved for adults to help prevent infections from 20 strains of the bacteria bacteria that cause pneumococcal pneumonia. Continued approval may depend on a supportive study. Don't get Prevnar 20 if you've had a severe allergic reaction to the vaccine or its ingredients. Adults with weakened immune systems may have a lower response to the vaccine. Side effects include pain and swelling at the injection site, fatigue, headache, muscle, and joint pain. For full prescribing information, please call 1-855-213-2138 or visit Prevnar20.com.
Helping to make you the most knowledgeable person in your circle of friends. This is Tavis Smiley.
I want to play another clip for you from this documentary called Beyond Bars about the life story of Chesa Boudin, who was elected DA in San Francisco and then yanked out of office. He was elected, in case you've just tuned in, elected a few years ago in this wave across the country that swept in a number of progressive DAs. After they were elected, we, as I said earlier, sort of got politically schizophrenic and decided we wanted to yank him out of office. I guess we thought we wanted some progressivism to take on the challenges that we see rampant in our criminal justice system. And once they started doing that, we started trying to recall all of them. They successfully recalled Chesa Boudin in San Francisco. George Gascon has faced a recall here in L.A., and they're not the only two. But we'll talk about that part, as we say, of the story in a moment. What it is about us that that I can't quite figure out. That we say we want progressive DAs, we say we want to change the system that's broken in so many ways, and when we start doing that, we pull back on it pretty immediately. I digress on that for now. Here now some more sound from this documentary, Beyond Bars.
Hey, collect call from Dave Gilbert. I could call him weekly for 20 minutes. Well, how are things at home? What's happening in school? Who'd you play with? And it became clear it wasn't that he was petulant, but he didn't really want to have a relationship where he was answering questions. He wanted to be doing something with me. And this led to our creating these serial adventure stories.
Each 20-minute phone call would be a chapter. And at the beginning of the next call with the other parent, they would ask me to update them on how far we'd gotten in the adventure story, and then they'd take it and sort of pass the baton.
At some point, suspenseful point in the story, they'd say, well, what do we do now? How do we solve it? And encourage him to, to come up with ideas that help move the story forward.
I remember boating down the Amazon River, and they were exposing me to things like indigenous rights and environmental protection, and those stories were fun.
How do you maintain a connection with people that you're apart from? And people have to do that around the world. When families are broken, destroyed, separated, immigration, displacement, all of it.
I grew up in a family with 9 brothers and sisters and a mother and a father in the house. And it wasn't easy for Joyce or Emery raising us. And by the way, I'm still praying for my father. And my father had a major surgery the other day on his spine. It was supposed to be 2 or 3 hours, and he was in surgery for almost 9 hours. Thank God for Jesus, he survived, and hopefully on the road to recovery. But praying for my father, who just survived that surgery just a couple of days ago. But my mother and father were there with all 10 of us in that house, and it wasn't easy for them. Why am I raising that? Because many of you are parents, and you're listening right now, and you have a child or children in the home, and parenting ain't easy for you. When you hear that clip, imagine now parenting your child from prison. You having a hard time doing it in the house every day. You're there. But imagine trying to parent your baby from prison for all of his childhood, for all of his formative years. That's what I hear when I hear that clip, Robert Greenwald, the difficulty of trying to raise a child from prison. But you did the documentary. You're behind it. It's called Beyond Bars, about Chesa Boudin's life. Our guest is Robert Greenwald. Robert, your thoughts on that clip?
Well, I think you just said it very accurately. I can't even begin to imagine parenting from prison. Parenting when you're present is hard. And then it's not only the effort to parent from prison, but then you're working with another set of parents who are in fact raising your children and child. And Chesa Boudin talked about it very eloquently, that There was jealousy. There was the missing out on birthdays and events and thinking. At one point, she even said to Chesa, "Why don't you call me Mom? You don't call me Mom." And he said to her, and this is in the film, mothers are reserved for those who are there. You're not there for me, which is both heartbreaking and truthful, and goes to the sort of essential core of the film, which is about those emotional truths, about family, about, as Kathy or Bernadine says, how do you create bonds? It's not the only situation. It's all over the world where people are locked up and wanting to stay closer, and it's a challenge. And then you have, as you were saying before the break, you have these right-wing forces spending obscene amounts of money to get rid of people who've just been elected. 3 days, listen to this, 3 days after Chesa was elected, the recall effort began.
Yeah.
I mean, that's obscene, and the millions of dollars that were raised.
Yeah.
And it's easier to scare people than anything else, right? You can always go to scare tactics, and they use scare tactics of crime, of danger, of racism, and that resulted in his being thrown out of office. Fortunately, there have been many other elections around the country where the DAs have fought back.
Yep. George Gascon fought back here and survived a recall here in L.A. He is now in a runoff to be reelected DA here in L.A. But again, to Robert's point, all across the country, we were electing these progressive DAs, and many of them, as Robert astutely pointed out, are fighting and pushing back against millions of dollars of Republican money being spent to either recall them or to take them out at the next election. These progressive DAs. I mentioned earlier, in case you did not hear, I'll repeat again right now before I press on with Robert in this conversation. We're talking about Beyond Bars, the documentary about the life of Chesa Boudin, who's raised by his parents in prison and dedicates himself to being elected, to do something about it. And so he ran and won as DA of San Francisco and started to make some progress in that regard until they yanked him out of office, but dedicated his life to wanting to change the system, given what he saw visiting his parents in prison for all of those years, his mother and his father. He, Chesa Boudin, is our guest tomorrow on this program in the first hour. You'll hear from him directly, hear more about his life and more about the politics as he sees it of what yanked him out of office. So we'll hear from Chesa Boudin tomorrow in our first hour. In our second hour, Clay T. D. White, longtime Las Vegas historian, takes us inside the oral history of Sin City's black community. I'm looking at Miles Lowe, my board op, who's from Vegas. Tomorrow, Miles, we're going to bet on black tomorrow. We're going to bet on black and talk about the history of black folk in Sin City. And our third and final hour tomorrow, Don Lemon, former CNN anchor who's had his own share of troubles of late. Don Lemon steps in inside this show tomorrow in our third hour. So Chesa Boudin tomorrow in the first hour. Clay T. D. White about the history of black folk in Las Vegas. We'll bet on black tomorrow in our second hour, and then we'll wrap tomorrow's program in our third hour with former CNN anchor Don Lemon, who recently had a run-in with Elon Musk at Twitter. We will talk to Don tomorrow in our third and final hour. More of our conversation with Robert Greenwald about his new documentary, Beyond Bars, when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
Hope, agency, dignity. This is Tavis Smiley.
Can you dig it? Come on! What is dedication?
My biggest fear in the middle of my addiction was that my kids wouldn't have a father. And I started thinking, you know what? This isn't my story. I definitely had to become a better man to be a better father. It's important to me that my kids are empowered and truly believe that if they can think it, they can do it.
That's dedication. Visit fatherhood.gov to hear more. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Joey from Vermont, a farmer trying to get through the winter. Adriana from South Carolina, a single mother living paycheck to paycheck. Liam from Ohio, an injured father struggling to provide for his family. Hi, I'm Shanola Hampton, and I support the Feeding America network of food banks because they help provide over 6 billion meals to people in need each year. Learn more at feedingamerica.org.
'Cause 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 ' must understand the politics of our community, and we must know what politics is supposed to produce.
This election year, KBLA Talk 1580 is the place for politics, unapologetically progressive politics. And we've got two of the best and brightest to help you cut through all the noise. Weekdays at 1 p.m., it's A More Perfect Union with Dr. Nee Cordelai-Corte. And at 4 p.m., it's Areva Martin in Real Time. He's the university professor and distinguished member of the White House Correspondents Association. She's a best-selling author and Harvard-trained civil rights lawyer. And they are both here every day to help guide you through all the this year, because you know it's going to get deep. Get your politics on weekday afternoons at 1 p.m. and 4 p.m. with A More Perfect Union, hosted by Dr. Nee Cordelai-Corte and Areva Martin in Real Time, only on KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
Without the ones like you, who work tirelessly to keep things running, everything would suddenly stop. Hospitals, factories, schools, and power plants, they all depend on you. No matter the weather, emergency, or time of day, you're the ones who get it done. At Grainger, we're here for you with professional-grade industrial supplies. Count on real-time product availability and fast delivery. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Attorney Joe Cordell.
Business owners and professionals face special challenges in divorce court. In addition to everything else going on, they have to contend with allegations that they are earning more than they are, coupled with claims on their business or practice itself. Clients with assets depend on their divorce lawyer's skills in these matters, and that's why it's so important to hire someone that has those skills.
1455 Frazee Road, Suite 1050, San Diego, California, 92108. CordellCordell.com.
Made fresh daily in Leimert Park, Los Angeles, California. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
Robert Greenwald, tell me more about these two other parents who helped raise Chesa outside of prison. You mentioned earlier, and this comes through loud and clear in the documentary Beyond Bars, about these four parents that he had. Tell me about the other two.
The other two were Bill Ayers and Bernadine Dawn, who also had been members of the Weather Underground for many years. They were longtime friends of Kathy and David's. And as they say in the film, they heard on the radio that Kathy and David had been arrested, and they knew they were not going to be able to raise their son, and immediately went downtown in New York at the home of Leonard Boudin, the very famous and important lawyer, their grandfather to Chesa, and helped out. And very soon thereafter, they took Chesa in. They had two sons of their own. As Bill Ayers said, they're very family-oriented, child-oriented. He taught at a daycare center, and they raised them, and it was never easy. It was a challenge. He said they would have times when they thought the whole thing was falling apart. How do you explain it to your two young children that the third child was suddenly there? How do you explain it to your parents? Very real human interactions, which is what makes the story so powerful, and why I hope many of your listeners will take advantage of the fact that it's free and arrange a screening at church, at schools, at homes, places of work. Very easy. Go online, sign up, and you get a link, and then you can have a discussion. You can open the eyes of people who maybe think the system is working versus it's working in a racist way to lock people up. You can open the eyes of people who don't. I didn't understand how important district attorneys were till I began work on this film. I mean, it's extraordinary the impact they have on people's lives, and it behooves all of us who care to get involved and to engage. And I hope the film is emotional and interesting way to do that.
Our remaining moments with the man behind this new documentary called Beyond Bars, Robert Greenwald, when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
What's your quarrel with the world? You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
If you're like me, 60 and retired, making ends meet, especially here at the supermarket and drugstore, is tough. I'm so blessed to have found BenefitsCheckup.org. It's a free and confidential website from the National Council on Aging that connected me to $1,200 a year in programs that help pay for food, medicine, utilities, and more. Maybe it can help you. BenefitsCheckup.org.
My daughter was diagnosed with a rare malignant rhabdoid tumor on the spine. They sent her straight to St. Jude. My hope was gone. But when you get there, everyone's like, hey, we're not going to give up. And when you see other people not giving up on your child, that makes all the difference in the world. When I found out I didn't have to pay, I was just grateful. They saved my baby's life.
Finding cures, saving children. Learn more at stjude.org.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 reminding you that we keep us safe. Pro Football Hall of Famer and urban peace pioneer Jim Brown believed in just that. So he founded the Amera I Can Foundation for Social Change in 1988, focusing on at-risk and high-risk youth in underserved schools and juvenile detention facilities, as well as adult incarceration and reentry initiatives. The core of the Amera I Can program is its 15-chapter life skills curriculum. Mastery of these skills allows individuals to meet their academic potential, conform their behavior to acceptable societal standards, and improve the quality of their lives by equipping them with what they need to confidently and successfully contribute to society. Today, the foundation is led by its president, Monique Brown, who has been actively involved in the organization for more than 25 years. The Amera I Can Foundation continues its work in memory of its founder, actor, philanthropist, and NFL legend Jim Brown. To get involved or make a donation, please visit AmeriICanCommunity.partners. That's AmeriICanCommunity.partners. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
That was another way. I would smoke once an hour. That didn't work either. All that would happen at some point of the day, I would end up doubling up. Other ways that I tried to quit was I stopped buying cigarettes totally. But if I took 3 puffs off of 15 friends, those didn't count because they weren't my cigarettes and they weren't full cigarettes. I went through a lot.
Every attempt is part of your story to quit for good. Visit Kick It California today at kickitca.org.
Let's get back to more of this rich dialogue with Tavis Smiley.
Tavis Smiley and Robert Greenwald, who is the man behind the new documentary Beyond Bars, about the story of now former DA in San Francisco, Chesa Boudin. This is what Robert Greenwald does all the time. He's done so many investigative documentaries, and they're always free, as you heard him say earlier. And they try to use these documentaries, these short films, to inspire conversation around the country about the issues which they tackle. He's done pieces including Making a Killing, Guns, Greed, and the NRA, another called Unmanned, America's Drone Wars, War on Whistleblowers, Koch Brothers Exposed, Rethink Afghanistan, Iraq for Sale, The War Profiteers, Outfoxed, Rupert Murdoch's War on Journalism, and Uncovered, the War on Iraq. He's been doing this for quite some time now, and we're honored to have him on this program and thankful for all the work he's done over the years to, again, try to bring us subject matter that other documentarians tend to shy away from. But these documentaries always lead us into conversations like the one we've had today. I want to close with a couple quick exit questions. One of them is, and you spoke about this a bit earlier, Robert, but I want to ask you directly, what do you make of the fact, given Chesa's backstory and all that he went through, dedicating himself to being elected to change the system that he saw so maltreat his parents and others, that once in, voters in San Francisco got politically schizophrenic, and then before he could really get started good, decided to yank him out?
Well, I think the short summary, and it's in the film, it's actually the subtitle, it's a movement, not a moment.
Mm-hmm.
All too often, myself included, we get impatient, we see injustice, we see racism, we see inequality. We want it changed instantly, but it's not going to change instantly. Those in power are never going to willingly say, oh, come, take over, get rid of me. It's a battle, it's a fight, it takes time, and it takes energy. But together, we can do it, and I am appreciative and so thankful that you are on the air, Tavis, that you're reaching a large audience, and that your continued integrity and passion comes through loud and clear over the radio.
You were kind. You were kind. Let me ask you what your takeaways were. Now I'm asking a personal question, not even a professional question, but what were your takeaways from the time you spent with Chesa Boudin? He is now executive director of the Criminal Law and Justice Center at University of California, Berkeley School of Law. So he's still doing the work that he dedicated himself to. You can do that work whether you're in office or you're out of office. I remind people all the time, Dr. King never held office. More importantly, he never had a radio show, never had a TV show, and he changed the world. So you don't need a radio show or a TV show or a podcast or elected office to do your part to change the world. King is Exhibit A, and there are so many others I could offer as exhibit to make that point. But he had to go through hell as a child, being parented from prison. He ends up getting to the heights of elected office in this state, certainly in San Francisco as the DA, and then they yank him out of office. Again, he's continuing to do his work and his witness. But what were your takeaways about him as a man, his personal journey, Robert Greenwald?
That he would not be stopped, that he made the commitment. Now, is the commitment the result of good parenting, good genes, environment? Is it nature or nurture? You know, it's a long-term discussion and fight. But he made that commitment, and he stayed the course. And there are ups and there are downs, and we need people like Chesa, like yourself, like members of your audience, who are going to stay doing what needs to be done so that we can, as you said earlier on, have the world we want to have the world with equality and caring and support, and not be constantly scaring and terrifying and using racist elements to lock up more and more people. And we can. I remain, after all this time, and I don't know if it's my New York upbringing or a version of some insanity, but I remain absolutely committed to that belief.
Yeah, in the 30 seconds I have left, I'll give it to you to share with the audience once again how they can find this free film, Beyond Bars.
You can go to our website, Brave New Films. You can go to YouTube. You can go to Facebook. You can go to Instagram. You can follow Brave New Films. You can follow me. You can go to Twitter. You can go to TikTok. You can get brief clips. You can get the full film. You can arrange a screening. You can get a study guide, a reflection guide. We want to make it as easy as possible for as many people as possible. We want to have 1,000 free screenings but in the next 7, 8, 9 months, and we need each and every one of you to say, I'm going to do something.
Robert Greenwald, you are doing more than something. You are doing the Lord's work, or you are doing righteous work, if I can put it that way. And I am always delighted to be in dialogue with you. Congratulations on this new project. Thank you for bringing it to us. I celebrate once again your work and witness on this program tomorrow in our first hour. You'll hear from the guy who we've been talking about at this hour. Chesa Boudin is our guest in the first hour tomorrow. We'll be joined by Don Lemon tomorrow in our third hour. For now, though, Robert Greenwald, all the best to you, sir. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Until tomorrow, thanks for tuning in to Tavis, Smiley, and as always, keep the faith.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.